the ancient past, aka 2005, Batman Begins burst onto the big screen and broke the box office and Bat fans' minds. It was the first major Batman project that heavily focused on being as grounded in reality as possible, and was the most successful attempt to take comic book films in that direction forward. With the exception of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, most superhero films back then hid their comic book roots with jokes at the source material and lots of black leather.
You actually go outside in these things?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Currently, thanks to the MCU and other projects, a lot of that attachment to realism has thankfully been left in the past. But with Matt Reeves' The Batman just around the corner and my hype levels utterly through the roof, a lot of people have vocalized that they are tired of the dark, gritty realism that has followed Batman's cinematic escapades for over a decade now, and to bring in more of the outlandish elements from the comics and cartoons. But over 20 years ago, a movie was released in response to the darkness of prior Batman films. It was made with kids as the target audience in mind, but in the years since its release, it's been lambasted by fans and critics alike. And only now, in the current era of cinematic superhero universes, cape shit, and slowly shaking off attachments to realism, is it finally getting the appreciation that it deserves. That movie is Batman Forever. And today I'm gonna explain why it's not only one of the most underrated comic book movies ever made, but one of the most refreshing cinematic takes on Batman. Good lord, I'm gonna say Batman so many times in this video. Use it as a drinking game. Clutching to realism so tightly like Joe Chill to Martha Wayne's pearls has caused a lot of superhero adaptations over the years to miss the mark of what makes many of these characters great. Whether through artificial self-seriousness that is funny as hell nowadays, or its dedication to being as realistic as possible, dooming it to never truly capture key aspects of the character. Like the Nolan trilogy. Wait, don't kill me please, let me explain, no, wait! No, I am not saying that Batman Forever is a better movie than the entire Nolan trilogy. That's ridiculous. But compared to most versions of Batman we've gotten on the big screen, it is a light-hearted breath of fresh air, and unlike its sequel, is unironically good. After the massive success of Tim Burton's Batman in 1989, he went all out for the sequel Batman Returns. However, despite it being a big hit, it wasn't as successful as the previous film, wasn't a big hit with kids and parents, and kind of messed up plans for merchandise sales. Cause imagine you take your little Timmy to watch Batman Returns with his Batman Diet Coke and Happy Meal toy, and he sees this.
Meow.
What makes Batman Forever so interesting to me is that in spite of director Joel Schumacher dialing up the absurdity to 11 to meet Warner Bros. Kid-friendly agenda, he wanted to tell a story of Batman having an identity crisis, and although it's flawed, he does so in a way that it connects with what I love most about the character. Joel really went all in. His direction shined in the visuals and production design. Burton's Gotham was cold, gothic, and grim, littered with gargoyles and random giant pipes. It was far from reality, but still had clear roots in it, unlike Schumacher and production designer Barbara Ling's neon nightmare. Heavy shadows were contrasted by bright, blaring lights, and Gotham City was punctuated by blacklight alleys and giant statues holding up buildings. Cinematographer Steven Goldblatt composed shots that made this over-the-top wonderland leap out of the screen with his framing of the characters and canted angles that make the city itself feel unhinged. Gotham City feels like a character, feels unique, unlike Nolan's Gotham, which was just Chicago, and Snyder's, which was just gray buildings. The costume designs are gloriously insane, especially for Riddler and Two-Face. Wacky, colorful scarring beats realistic red scarring any day, even if it makes absolutely no sense in context. Also, isn't it funny that both live-action Riddler costumes represent a different kind of kink? And speaking of kinks, it's not too hard to figure out what Joel's were watching this. Joel was one of the few LGBTQ people to direct a comic book movie, and you don't have to be a detective to see how it came across in a lot of the film. The buff circus dudes covered in gold paint, the David Bowie inspired look for Riddler, the bat nipples. Okay, maybe not that last one. Why are those there? The unashamed flamboyance of it all enhances the uniquely bizarre style that Joel decided to embrace. And to me, the element that truly elevated his vision, the personification of it, was Jim Carrey's Riddler. This is one of my favorite performances in any comic book movie. He brought that same manic energy from The Mask, but with a more sinister and obsessive edge, all while being completely hysterical. The writers nailed Nigma's narcissistic need for attention. He's obsessed with Bruce because, holy crap, is that Happy Hogan? He's obsessed with him because Bruce is the center of attention for Gotham, everything he wants to be. So when he's rejected, he lashes out to find that attention from the city. That's why he starts a rival company to sell the box and become the smartest man in the world. Because how can anyone look away from the hot new billionaire in town or the man who knows everything about everyone? He is a raging egomaniac who believes he's entitled to live rent-free in everyone's minds because of his intelligence and that alone. Literally comparing himself to a god. The only thing I don't like about Carrey's Riddler is nothing to do with his performance, but rather the writing. The riddle subplot barely connects to the main story, and the more you think about it, the less sense that it makes. Why do the answers reveal his name to Bruce? He didn't know he was Batman at first, or did he change course for the last riddle? How did he even do that?
Just raises too many questions.
Carrey's Riddler is the personification of the pure demented fun this movie brings. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for its other antagonist, Tommy Lee Jones, as Two-Face. If you ask me who my favorite Batman villain is, most days I would say Two-Face. Harvey Dent is a tragic, fascinating character whose downfall into villainy is one of the most iconic parts of the Dark Knight's history. A former friend of Bruce and Batman turned bitter enemy, his origin is perhaps the most important one out of all the Rogues Gallery. So why the hell did we get Riddler's and not his? Like, I get the last time Harvey showed up, his mind was trapped in the body of Lando Calrissian, but that's not an excuse to gloss it over in an episode of Judge Judy! Two-Face is reduced to a giggling lunatic who burps like a monkey and can't even follow his own decision-making process. What the point of the coin if you're gonna flip it twice? His dual personalities never come across, and Tommy Lee Jones' performance here is probably his worst. You can really tell this is not the role he is best suited for, and he just did not care about this movie. He only did it for his son. His Two-Face should have been angry and creepy instead of bouncing off walls. It also doesn't help that Jim Carrey is doing the same thing right next to him, but a million times better. The two having contrasting personalities would have made their dynamic much better as well. No wonder Tommy Lee said he couldn't sanction Jim's buffoonery. No, that's not a joke. He really said that.
My vision!
Batman Forever's embrace of comedy and flat-out insane elements doesn't hinder its ability to tell a serious story. Kind of. Val Kilmer is without a doubt the most underrated actor to have ever played Batman. Michael Keaton brought a lot of his everyman energy to the role, and that worked really well in my opinion. But Val Kilmer captured the quiet suffering of the character. He always looks like there's more he wants to say, like he wants to open up, but chooses not to. He also perfectly shows Bruce's compassion in his own unique way, cold, but you never get the sense he doesn't care. He also has a pretty damn good Batman voice. Doesn't sound too much like his real voice, but also doesn't sound like your neighbor's broken AC unit. I don't know why, but the way he just says women cracks me the hell up. Many fans have said he's close to a live-action version of Kevin Conroy's Batman from the animated series, and I'd have to agree. His Batman feels approachable, yet still mysterious. I don't really see the point in comparing him to Bale. His performance was fantastic for that version of Bruce. It's just That version of Bruce, as great as he is missing elements of the character that I personally love the most. And it all leads back to the boy wonder. Robin is so important to Batman, and I don't know why there are people that try to deny that. No, of course the Nolan films were never going to do Robin. At least not in a good way. Nolan wanted to keep it grounded, and I respect that. He stuck to his vision. But with that approach, you will be losing out on a ton of characters and thus certain stories and development you can give to that adaptation of Batman, Robin being the chief example. Like I explained in my Robin Year 1 video, which you can catch in the card up top or in the link in the description, Dick Grayson is a better version of Bruce because he was able to have a childhood, which led to him being a more lighthearted, more balanced person. And adopting Dick is the mission statement of Bruce's nightly war, to ensure that what happened to him wouldn't happen to anyone again. It's the beginning of him creating a new family for himself and letting others in. Batman Forever is the closest any live-action Batman movie gets to exploring this key aspect of his growth. Bruce's identity crisis is spurred by meeting terrible psychologist Dr. Chase Meridian. Nicole Kidman gives way more than necessary in her performance as this almost parody of sexy love interests in movies. I mean, seriously, this woman is dangerously horny. Chase described being Batman as a curse, a form of nightly torture, and Bruce begins to wonder why he became Batman in the first place, and why he even continues with this fight. Is it truly to protect the innocent, or is it some prolonged form of revenge? In this timeline, the Joker killed his parents, and he's dead, so is this truly justice, or is he doling out punishment to make himself feel better? His internal conflict only increases when he takes in Dick after Two-Face kills his family. Chris O'Donnell does a pretty decent job as Dick Grayson. I just think the character shouldn't have been this old first becoming Robin. Honestly, he would have made a much better Nightwing. But he plays the rebellious teenager pretty well. Dick is adamant on killing Two-Face, wanting to be Bruce's partner, but Bruce warns him of the path of vengeance and the path that he follows, when he can't even tell the difference between the two anymore.
When I was out there tonight, I imagined it was him that I was fighting, even when I was fighting you. And all the pain went away. You can't understand. Your family wasn't killed by a maniac.
Yes, they were. We're the same.
All right, train me. Let me be your partner.
No. I can't. You still have a choice.
This is where I have to bring up the deleted scenes. A lot of scenes were cut from the final product that not only would have made the film darker, but explored Bruce's internal conflict that much deeper. In one of them, Bruce watches a reporter demand that Batman should retire, that he only breeds supervillains instead of stopping them. Bruce ponders his purpose, whether he became Batman to run away from the pain. These cut clips make his decision to retire actually impactful, doing what he thinks is best for the city, himself, and being an example to Dick, who's on a warpath. Whereas in the main cut, it can easily be read as him retiring just for Chase. His memory flashes of his parents' wake and his father's journal build to an even stronger resolution as well. In the theatrical cut, it was the realization that his father's journal would never be written in again that caused Bruce to start running from the pain and fear, and put him on the path to meet the beast he would use to instill fear in his enemies and protect others from it. Letting his repressed memories flow allows him to see that he may have started angry and afraid, but he has used those emotions to fight for what's right and protect the innocent from the evil that's caused him so much pain. He is both vengeance and justice. And he's proven to himself that he has a choice. Finally being secure with both sides of himself, he can finally begin to heal. That's a really good realization, and it works decently as his final conclusion. But the deleted scene goes so much deeper. Literally, Bruce returns to where he fell all those years ago in the cave and finds his father's journal. Chase had asked earlier what great crime a man could possibly commit that could cause him to serve such a penance. His parents' murder. At the core of Bruce's trauma is guilt. his guilt of making his parents go to the movies that night. If he hadn't, they would still be here. But the journal reveals the truth, that his parents wanted to go see the movie that night, and they just took Bruce with them.
Not my fault. Not my fault.
He's been punishing himself for years for a crime that he never committed. His pain being specified as his long-standing guilt recontextualizes his entire crime-fighting career, and the visuals elevate it even further. Instead of staring at the beast with fear, then rage, and finally purpose, he spreads his arms to embrace it as part of him, something that he chooses to let in, to do for others what couldn't be done for him. When he's confronted by Dick, who's formed his identity as Robin, the nickname his parents gave him, Bruce realizes that this boy will walk a path close to his no matter what. So, he agrees to let him into his world, to guide him on the right path. As partners, he's let Chase and now Dick into both sides of his life, as he finally begins to move on. Dick, in spite of all the anger and rage that he feels, ultimately makes the right choice, to be the hero that his parents knew he was. And for Bruce, it all comes down to the Riddler's final puzzle, the ultimate test. Two people, his two halves. Can he have it both ways? Can Bruce Wayne and Batman ever coexist? The movie's answer?
Poor Edward. I had to save them both. You see, I'm both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Not because I have to be. Now, because I choose to be.
Wow, Spider-Man movies took a lot from this one Batman flick. Joel, the cast, and the writers all truly understood the duality central to Batman. The entire script was built around this psychological reckoning, as screenwriter Akiva Goldsman put it. It's unfortunate the final product didn't include those deleted scenes, because if they were, we'd have the best theatrical story arc for Batman ever. But Warner Brothers wanted that kid-friendly market, and it worked out. Batman Forever was a box office hit, surpassing Batman Returns sales. Surely this is a tactic that will work wonders for WB in the future. I will admit, as a kid, I never liked the Nolan films. They always felt like they were missing something to me. They got the darkness, they got the action, and even the idea of the epic myth. But it wasn't fun for me to watch them. It felt like it was a shame to be a Batman movie. So when I saw Batman Forever, it filled that void. But I was a kid. That was the whole point of Forever being made how it was, to appeal to little Batman-obsessed kids like me. By embracing its history wholeheartedly, being absolutely balls-to-the-wall filmmaking, and telling a story of a man who begins to move past his trauma and let others in once again, Batman Forever stands out among his contemporaries. You can feel the sheer passion of everyone who worked on it, who wanted to use the opportunity given to them to cut loose, do something new, and celebrate this iconic character. The movie isn't perfect. It fumbles and contradicts itself a lot and misses several opportunities to be better. But, just like Batman himself, it gets back up and doesn't stop trying. In the alternate version of the final scene, Dr. Meridian asks Alfred,
Does it ever end, Alfred?
No, Dr. Meridian. Not in this lifetime.
because no matter if it's a choice or a compulsion, a heroic sacrifice or a tragic burden, a caped crusader or a dark avenger, Bruce Wayne will always be Batman. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't be too angry in the comments. Now if you will excuse me, I'm going to go get some much needed sleep and listen to Kiss by a Rose from Seal on a loop. Good night, Tri-State area.